Hollywood film distributors only release movies they think will sell. And several years ago, hot on the heels of Sweet Sweetback, they discovered that black folks, violence, sex, and drugs on screen, and any combination guaranteed big profits from the black community. Since then, we have been black Caesared, superflied, and generally shafted. Recently, however, black producers who have taken an initiative with films about other aspects of black life have been able to find a market for their products. Tonight, Say Brother will discuss the intricacies of the Hollywood business with Brock Peters, co-producer of 5 on the Black Hand Side, James Murray, author of Black Films from Uncle Tom to Superfly, which is an absorbing history of the participation of blacks in the movie industry from past to present, and Lee Chamberlain, who will soon appear in Uptown Saturday Night with Bill Cosby and Sidney Poitier. Good evening and welcome to the show. We've got some very interesting people here tonight. First, I'd like to introduce Lee Chamberlain.
How do you do?
Good
How
evening.
are you?
How you doing?
Okay.
Then I'd like to introduce Brock Peters.
Hi, Tapa.
Hello. And finally, James Murray.
How you doing?
Let me just throw out a general question and I guess ask each of you why you've been attracted to the film industry. Why don't I start with Lee?
Why I've been attracted to the film industry?
Sure.
Well, I don't know. I think that as an actor, you want to try as many media as you can. I am particularly partial to the stage because there's a continuity there that I happen to like. I mean, that appeals to me. But films are happening.
Okay.
And if there's something good that comes along, I don't think you should say no. I mean, you should explore it. It's part of developing your craft.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You find any differences? What do you find to be the differences between, say, a film and stage?
Oh, they are vast.
Okay.
Well, first of all, in a film, it's never done sequentially, or rarely done sequentially. There's a kind of strain which is different than the stage strain, in that you don't. I didn't find that I had enough or as much time as I would like to really get as deeply as I can into a character. I mean, when you finish at the end of it, you think of all the things you might have done. When you're doing a stage performance, every evening you have a chance to dig deeper and find the nuances that weren't there. I mean, after 8 months, you can play the same thing for 8 months, and every night there better be something just a little bit different. The tension with a film is that it is so concentrated, and there's a different kind of pressure that's put on you. The only way I can ever approach it is just by being as honest as I can, which is not necessarily the satisfactory way to go about it. But if you are just honest about what you're doing and what you're feeling, it'll come through. I mean, the camera doesn't lie. That's the truth.
I did. I did. Brock, how did you come to films?
Well, I think it's a natural progression. I started, as Lee did, in the theater, and I'm still very much with theater. And eventually, as the career developed, the next step was film. It just had to be. And as Lee also says, of course, an actor must ply his trade wherever he can, and I don't think one should limit themselves to theater. The challenges are exciting, not only in theater, but in film as well, and in television. And normally when I'm asked the question, which do I prefer, the answer is generally theater, but I also add a postscript. And that is to say that I go where the challenges are, the challenges of the property, the challenges of the role. And I find sometimes a very interesting role in film or in television that I wouldn't have a crack at on stage, or just that happens not to exist for the theater.
Yeah.
Jim, what about yourself? How do you come to film?
Well, contrary to the other two panelists tonight, I'm not really an insider in the industry, but a spectator in a sense of speaking, although it is part of my profession. I'm primarily a writer, And the interest that I have in film is that I find it to be an exciting medium, and it's an all-inclusive medium. Besides the aspects of just acting, which are there are the areas of music, which is, you know, an integral part of films, and also film itself, motion pictures, cameras, and all this type of things, art direction. There are many, many different aspects of a film. Like I said, it is, I find, a very, very exciting and powerful and all-inclusive medium, and I've just been a movie fan, you know, really all of my life.
He
Yeah,
left
okay.
out the fact that he writes extremely well about films and
Okay.
for films.
Okay. Who do you write for now?
Well, I am on the permanent staff. I'm the art and entertainment editor of the New York Amsterdam News, but I do quite a bit of freelance writing for the New York Times, Encore magazine,
I see.
a number of the black magazines, and some film trades when I can.
I see. You think there's any I'll throw this out generally to the group, you know, as to what, why the recent popularity in black films? This sounds like a very simplistic question. I think I probably know the answer, but I'd like to hear somebody else speak to that.
Well, I don't know. Wouldn't you say it's just, again, you know, kind of a natural progression? It's not the first time, as you well know. It certainly isn't the first time that you could say we've been forced, in one sense, into making our own films, if you will. I mean, it certainly happened before.
Well, if I may attempt to answer that in this way, you know, we faced a phenomenon in history, that is, we watched the monoliths of the industry, the major studios, at a point in time when they were all bankrupt. Television had decimated their producing powers. Everybody was interested in watching the box at home and not going out to the theaters. And they were losing ground rapidly, and several of them faced bankruptcy. They couldn't find the markets that they used to have, and they faced a great deal of competition from abroad. So their discovery of a black audience was fortuitous for many of them, because I can name several that were saved from bankruptcy. MGM, for example, was saved by Shaft, and 20th Century Fox and Paramount, all of them were saved by these films. Low-budget films addressed to the black audience that succeeded instantly. And
You're going back to the economy. I mean, any time there's something
well,
that's...
that is
right.
the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
I could
Okay.
expand further
Okay.
on that, but
Sure.
that basically is what happened. And that's the place in history they were. And that is the accidental discovery that they made. There was an audience there, and a large enough audience, paying to see itself mirrored as heroes and as the lover and who wins the girl and wins against the establishment. That was us this time around.
Okay. Do you think any of the films have in fact been artistic achievements? I mean, how would you?
Oh, I can think of a couple that were Nothing But a Man. I think was certainly an artistic achievement. I thought that was a
Yeah.
beautiful film.
Beautifully
It was done a
done.
few years
but,
ago.
But it predates these.
Yes,
you know, this current crop of
Ivan
films.
Dixon and
Right.
Abby
was it
Lincoln.
Abby? Abby
Lincoln,
Lincoln.
right.
Right.
A very touching, moving film, which
Just went
right,
forward, yeah.
just
Okay.
you know went.
Okay.
Well, I
What
think-
of the more recent films do you think might be categorized as artistic achievements?
I think, and you know, since this is, you know, where I'm coming from, I have a feeling that I've seen close to, if not every single one, of these films that have been called black-oriented during the past 3 or 4 years or so. I would say, leaving aside some of the problems that people had with different historical and image aspects of Sounder, that on most levels of production from a film and creative type of area that they were, was an extremely well done film. And I feel that Brock's picture was one that, in terms of content and imagery, was certainly outstanding, was one one of the top 10 films of last year, as far as I was personally concerned. I thought a picture done by Paramount, which was directed by Stan Lathan, something called Save the Children, which was a concert documentary, also came very, very close to great film achievement, and certainly, you know, did an excellent job in depicting what the black music experience was about. So those are 3. I think there have been very, very rare examples in the past couple of years, but those are 3 that come to mind to me immediately.
What does your book speak to? You've authored a book recently.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I just want to give a little background on how the book got started. Like I said, I've been an observer of the industry for quite some time, and when I started doing research, I had initially wanted to write for film, and I just started going to movies more and more, and also looking at what was happening and trying to collect information. And I found out that virtually everything that was written about black actors or actresses was confined to some of your major fan publications or your black publications like Ebony and Jet. And as my research continued, I found out that there had only been one book ever written about black films as such. There have been books about personalities in the movies, but never a book about black films as a phenomenon. And that had been written back in 1948 by a guy named Peter Noble, who was a British film critic. So that was like, some 25 years ago. And I was just amazed that no one had thought to do this. So I began my work about 4 years ago, before the boom had started as such. It was about 1969. And then, of course, it just was kind of coincidental that, all this activity happened after my work had begun. And it just made my job a lot easier. But what I attempted to do is to give some perspective of how the industry has dealt with blacks. And what I wanted to make a point of doing, since I am still learning a lot about the industry as such, is to do a lot of interviews as a journalist with people in the industry and let them do most of the talking. And I started out with the three major directors at the time that I started working. Those were Gordon Parks, Melvin Van Peebles, and R.C. Davis. And as time went on, there have been a lot of others, and I just sort of based it around what the people in the industry felt, and then research on the history to set the basis for it.
What kind of things does your book begin to reveal about the image that Hollywood had characteristically portrayed black people in? Did you get into that side of it, or what?
Just as a passing type of thing, I think that there was certain images that were very, very much popular in the movies prior to World War II. Those that are, immediately come to mind are, roles played by Stephen Fetchit and, the Mammies and all this type of thing, which I think all of us who are, reached a certain point in our lives are aware of when they're sometime revived on television shows on Sunday afternoons
All too often.
or late at night.
Yeah.
And so that was a certain type of very generally demeaning, but certainly they were playing second best and being used and exploited in various different ways, to the white, character actors and figures. And the change came about, I felt, generally in around the period of the 1950s, when James Edwards, who was quite an excellent actor, did some work in that time, and when Sidney, who Lee has worked with, was first starting, and he played some different roles. They were coming from a different direction, but many people have criticized him for some of his early roles as being a little bit more sophisticated, being a professional, but still taking sort of a demeaning tint, which I didn't necessarily agree with all the way along the line. And from there, I think the cathartic type of thing that happened, and one thing I think was very important to point out was that the black audience as such has existed in quite large proportions for some time. And one reason, to go back to one of your early questions, if I can just digress for a second, that I think black films were so successful is because I can think about my own personal experience as a youngster growing up. There was a lot of identification on my part with white heroes and James Bond and the Gary Coopers and the Westerns and all this type of thing. And I think what happened with the black film boom was when these types of hero roles where the brother was winning came about, this was just an added dimension to all of the excitement and unreality of fantasy of the black films, and it just, was like a cathartic thing that happened for, quite a while, and I think it's on a downward trend now, because if you look at, for instance, the latest Shaft movie, which was released last summer in the second Superfly picture, compared to the success of the originals, just nothing compared to them. So I think there is a downward trend in your so-called action pictures, and even the, your more obvious and blatant exploitation pictures are not doing hardly as well as even some things like, Brock's pictures. So I feel that a turnabout is starting to come now.
Did you talk about any of the early black films in your book at all?
Yes, I tried to deal with both the work that came out of Hollywood, and there were some white independent producers, some who worked in New York who made all black movies, and then there were a few isolated cases as far back as the 20s and 30s of independent production companies across the country, some in, one in St. Louis, one in Philadelphia, a couple in New York, and then I made a point of giving particular reference to a man named Oscar Michaud, who did just an incredible and magnificent job of both producing motion pictures on shoestring budgets, then distributing them himself, taking them around the country and building up capital and finance, and going back and making his next picture. And he was instrumental in working with great talents like Paul Robeson and doing some very, very important things and setting some precedents as far as I'm concerned for producers today. When we think of trying to develop a completely independent black film
So in
industry.
fact, this is not the first wave. This is
No, I call it, I call the black film boom an echo because there was precedent in the past for it if, we pay close attention to it.
Where was Oscar Michaud based? Was he in New York? Or
In New
what?
York City on
Was he in New York?
135th Street.
Yeah. That's sort of what I was referring to before when I said this isn't the first time around. I mean, we've sort of been forced into becoming independent and doing it ourselves, or as much as possible.
I think at that time, too, and Jim can bear me out, there was a great deal more freedom of production. It was a new industry. It was a baby, and there were no definitions, about where to get the financing. Everybody did it the best way they could do it. As the industry developed, however, then it became, it closed us out, and that's what really happened.
Right.
What kind of image on screen do you think the black film goer wants to see when he finally gets to the movie there?
Well, this has been a subject of great controversy, and I've tried to do a lot of research in it because during the height of the boom, which I feel occurred back in the summer of '72, when people like Jesse Jackson and Roy Ennis were, making public statements and going to different meetings, and there was a lot of activism. But, people talk about boycotting black films and all of it. The point was made particularly with Superfly, and I did a TV show right here, as a matter of fact, when someone made a comment that after Superfly was shown here in Boston, that the incidence of cocaine sniffing in the black community had risen tremendously. Now, they didn't support this with any statistics, and I'm not going to, say whether it's true or it wasn't true. I just have no basis for knowing. But I think that there has certainly been, at least on a superficial type of level, a great degree of identification among youth with the characters in the film. There was a period when everyone had the Prince Valiant haircuts that was going, and all the attire that he was wearing. Now, as far as what happens with people starting to relate to the violence, which these films have been criticized for, relating to the blatant sex, which they have been criticized for, and also, things like dealing, hustling, and pimping, I'm not so sure. I made a point on numerous occasions of going, not as a critic or as a journalist, to theaters where Superfly was shown, and just rapping, like I said, not interviewing, but rapping with kids. And the reaction I got overwhelmingly was that, yeah, man, it's just a movie. I've seen that all before. I'm not greatly affected by it. I think the greatest answer I've heard to that question so far was made by Ossie Davis on a show like this, where he said that the people who are basically stable are not going to be affected, but those kids that are sort of emotionally, unstable and can be, affected by any whim or when will be. So I think, in that sense of speaking, any time if one kid would go and start using drugs as a result of the film, of course it's bad, just if it was one. And I think there could be some direct correlation, but I don't think it's as great as a lot of people have tried to make it out to be, of epidemic type proportions.
Yeah.
What genre of movies give you ideas, whether they positive or negative? Let me know in the comments.
I always think of cartoons. I mean, I watch cartoons sometimes, and those things are so violent. I mean, you talk about violence and things that kids might try to do as a result of it. You know, it's just.
Well, yeah, that's true. My only feeling about the effect of those films on youngsters, the impressionable youngsters who might be affected, is that they corroborate for those youngsters that this is the way to win against the system. But that's only because they have already been crushed, spiritually or emotionally crushed, and they've determined for themselves that they've got to beat the system. They have to find a way.
Yeah.
And they pretty much have decided how to do it, you know, and along comes 6 or 7 films which say, yeah, that's it, baby.
There's a way to
that's
do
how to
it.
do it.
Right.
You know, you're right.
Well, this is something, another point that as Sydney made once in a discussion, and that is that seeing something on film has sort of a way of legitimizing whatever type of behavior is there. In other words, if a kid, you know, has been told and taught all his life not to curse, if he sees it there, some major movie star, somebody, you know, cursing, he sort of feels, well, you know, if he's going to do it, or if it's done in front of all these people in this type of public forum, maybe it's really not all that bad. So I think, again, this is a point that, you know, might certainly be made.
I'd like to take this opportunity to look at some stills and slides from some scenes from your most recent film, Lee. So as we do that, if you could tell us what's happening.
Okay. Where
Yeah.
do? Oh, well, that's, we were sort of goofing off. It was sort of between takes, and we were just laughing at that particular point. In my club, Sydney's Return. Now, this is at the top of the show, or the top of the movie. That's my club, and Bill Cosby, who plays Wardell, and Steve Jackson, played by Sidney Poitier, come to the club for the first time. The whole idea being that one of them is on vacation, and they're just going to do something they've never done before, and that's go to Madame Zenobia's club, which is a very, 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 very expensive place. And they can't afford it, but they're going to do it anyway.
Okay.
This is at one point where Sydney is giving me some direction. That's, again, in the club.
Sidney directed the film.
Yes,
good.
yes. Coming down the stairs in the club, you can see it's just slightly opulent to meet Bill and Sydney for the first time, because one of the things that Madame Zenobia does is she knows all of her customers and clients, and she makes it a point to get to know them personally if she can. That's a shot of Lee Chamberlain.
That's a gorgeous close-up.
Madame Zenobia, thank you. Aha! The man behind the mask is Calvin Lockhart.
Would he let himself
Yes,
be hidden like that?
well, yes. Oh, he's terrible.
I'm kidding.
He comes into our place and just decides he's going to take everything. And he does. And this is the crux of the movie, and one of the cruxes of the movie. He takes all of our jewels and everything, and while he's robbing us, there is something very, very important to Sidney and to Bill that gets lost in this robbery. And in their attempt to recuperate what they have lost in the robbery, the story continues to unfold, and it's a comedy, and it is funny.
Okay.
That's one of the original, that's again at the top of the show, and I might say that Sidney and I sort of have kind of an attraction for each other.
I see.
And he's kind of nice, I think. When he comes back to the club, really to find out if I know anything about the robbery, I, of course, think he's come back to see me. And it's sort of like with everything that I have, the one thing I never did have was just the kind of nice, simple guy that Sidney is in this movie. And I think maybe there's a chance, and I'm not going to tell you if it works out or not.
You mean we have
Okay.
to see it?
Okay.
Yes, you can see it. I think it's opening in New York June 19th, and then in Chicago a week later, and then in Los Angeles a month later. It'll be generally seen between the 19th of June and the 24th of July throughout the country.
Who produced it?
Verdun Productions.
Okay. Okay. Is that anybody we know?
Yes, Sidney is also part of the production company.
Okay, I
yeah.
understand. How is it that you chose acting as a career?
Well, it just sort of kind of happened. I used to be a professional dancer, and I never really cared for it that much. I wasn't that committed to it. I did it, and I liked it, and I'm glad I had the training because it comes in handy. And I was also a professional singer, and once again,
Okay.
it was.
I understand Brock was a singer. I just found
Oh,
that out.
I saw him. I saw him at that
It still
the
happens.
benefit
Where?
at St. John's.
Oh my, yes.
What do you mean, oh my? He
Forgot.
has a
I
magnificent voice, an absolutely magnificent voice.
Thank you, sir. I sing every now and again.
Yes, well, exactly. You know, like you're glad you have these other
Yeah.
little things because anything you can do to round out
The career.
your total thing. But as far as acting is concerned, I started studying just in 1968, and I did get a job, and I was able to study and work, for about a year and a half simultaneously, which is very fortunate. But I still hadn't really decided that that was what I wanted to do until about a year ago. It's one of those funny stories that you're standing in your dressing room by yourself, and I looked in the mirror and it just sort of, that's really what I want to do. That's what I have to do. You know, it was like one of those clicks,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it.
What was your first professional experience in the theater?
It was a show called The Believers that Voices Incorporated
Oh, yeah.
has been going around the country doing. And we did it down at the Mountainique Theater in New York. Barbara Antier directed it, and that was the first thing I did.
Right on.
And I think that was in '68. It was my very first professional job.
What did you do singing? Did you get to travel around and all that kind of stuff when you were singing?
Well, I only did that show with them. I was not interested, again, in singing per se. No, I did that show to got my equity card and
Oh,
went
I
on
dig,
from
I
there.
dig.
Yeah.
I dig. Okay. What were you involved in any off-Broadway productions?
That was
That was it?
off-Broadway.
That was it?
Your Own Thing was off-Broadway. I did that as Olivia. That's a kind of a popularized version of Twelfth Night, of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night. Let's see, what else did I do off-Broadway? I guess you could consider Shakespeare in the Park off-Broadway,
Okay.
which I did this past summer. We did King Lear, James Earl Jones playing our dear old dad.
Yeah.
And I've done guest artist things. I did Medea at Penn State a couple of years ago. And the rest has been television, mainly the Electric Company, which we started doing in '71. And I did the first 2 seasons. Although I didn't go back this season, I'm still on, I understand.
Yeah. Reruns. Huh?
Yeah, they're using a lot of the, well, after 2 years of taping, you know, they've got a lot of tape on me.
Yeah, who is Madame Zenobia? Tell me about her. What's she doing?
Madame Zenobia, as I understand it from my dear director, because it was something I didn't understand. She does own this extremely opulent gambling establishment, and I sort of looked at her in a different way, but it appears that there was a time in the 40s, and he named names, which I won't name now, where reasonably attractive women, the word went out that they were around, and certain black professionals, like our fighters and so on, and some of our more popular and better known singers, if they found out about this girl, they would cross state lines to whoosh her off the farm and, you know, be their woman. And it was necessary to know about this because I had completely misconstrued the character. And this is what happened. Zenobia, somebody found out about her. She might have been living in Atlanta, someplace on a farm, just calm and peaceful.
Minding her business.
And somebody swept her up to the big time. And no question about setting her up and doing whatever, you know, it was. And that is what the crux of the thing is that with all of this that I have, and I'm very successful, there's that one thing missing. And Steve Jackson, Sidney Poitier, is a very simple, plain, working dude. I mean, he's just a simple guy. He's very good looking, and I see him and I think, there's that part of the past that
It's something that I should have.
if I only could have that.
Round out my life.
And that's what Madame Zenobia is.
I dig. How was it working with Cosby and Puig?
Well, my friend Bill. I first met Bill when we did The Electric Company, the first season, and he's just, crazy and terrific and wonderful. And it was great. I had the best time ever working with Sidney and Bill and Harry Belafonte. And we have a terrific cast. Those are, can I talk about? Those are just a few. We've got Calvin Lockhart, Roscoe Lee Brown, who is fantastic. And we've got Flip Wilson, who is just too funny, and Richard Pryor, who's just
God.
he's a,
That's
I love
an
him.
incredible lineup.
And Paula Kelly and Rosalind Cash and Ketty Lester. And hope I didn't leave anybody out. But we've got just a terrific cast, and we just had a great time. It was just Sydney's, the set was run, he's a very easygoing man, and everything was just very calm and very nice. Most of my scenes were with Sidney and then with Bill. And it was just, I had loads of fun. I had a terrific time.
To work in a
Oh, you know
cast
how, when
like
it's
that,
good, it
you
is
know,
very,
it's-
very good.
It is incredible.
You know,
Excellent.
my husband is so sick and tired of hearing me talk about I don't care. I loved it.
Right on.
I loved it.
I understand you have a couple of record albums out in France.
Oh, for goodness sake. Who dredged that up? Yes, indeed. Yeah, I went to school in France, and then I went back to France afterwards, and I lived there. And I worked there, and I recorded there. And I even get checks every now and again from my 2 records, which breaks me up.
Don't knock it.
I know, it is so funny. You know, yes, I did do that.
Okay. Are they available in the States?
No, and if they were, I'd run out and buy them all. No, they're not bad. They're not bad at all. They're okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Brock, could you tell us a little about your film, Five on the Black Hand Side? I understand it's doing pretty good.
Well, yes, it opened here in Boston yesterday, and already there have been good reviews, and better than that, there has been great response from the audiences that have seen it thus far. I understand there's an incredible word of mouth that seems to be spreading around the city about it.
I'm helping to
And,
spread that. I think it was a beautiful
And I'm really
film.
delighted that that's happening. I'm delighted for a number of reasons, not only because of the very obvious reason that it means making money eventually, I hope, but also because it corroborates, the success of the film corroborates my view, or our view, Mike's and mine, that it would succeed and why it would succeed. You know, because for a long time we weren't able to get this project off the ground. We optioned it because we believed in it. We felt that there needed to be a change, and that there wasn't any material that being produced that really reflected what we were like, we black people in America, and what our experience and lifestyle is like, and we thought that this obviously should succeed. It was humorous, and we were told frequently, or not frequently, we were told constantly that this would not sell, that the only kind of thing that was being bought by the black community was the adventure film, or the fantasy film, if you will. And I was pretty insulted by that, because I think I have my ear to the ground, and I'm reasonably close to the black community from which I've come, and I am a black man, and I know that I'm tired of seeing the same thing again and again, and I'm insulted by material that doesn't really tell who I am.
I just would like to
And
be your
so-
press agent for an instant and say that everybody should run right out and do not pass go, do not collect $200 and see Five on the Black Hand Side. I think it is a terrific movie.
Thank you, Lee. And you know, and James Murray is sitting here. And,
Okay.
and
Have you seen it?
he
You've seen it,
did-
haven't you?
Yes, I have, and like I said, it was, as far as it was concerned, definitely one of the best 10 films that I saw last year, and just a remarkable change. And it's even gratifying to me, who likes to think of film as sometime along the line being art, seeing something approach, you know, this in terms of the black experience, which this film did.
Is this the first film that you've produced?
It is. It's the first production effort for both Michael Tolan and me, and it's also a first for Charlie Russell, who wrote it.
Right.
It's his first play, it's his first work as a playwright, and it's his first work as a screenplay writer.
Didn't you do it in New York at the American Place
Yes,
originally?
well, that
Yeah.
was his first effort
Yeah.
as a writer, and it ran very successfully at the American Place Theater. And very shortly after we optioned the property, it had a production at Caramel House in Cleveland, and then one in Seattle, and then one in Baltimore with the Arena Players, and I don't know how many other productions. Apparently, the play got around a good bit. There's a magazine which goes to all the high schools or junior high schools called Scholastic, I think, and it was published in that magazine, and it was picked up by a number of school groups, and it was performed. So a broad base of awareness, knowledge about the work was created. So that a lot of people are looking forward to seeing it when it comes to their city.
What words of wisdom do you have to pass on to all the aspiring young producers out there?
Gee, I don't think I have any words of wisdom.
Well, advice.
That have anything to do with anything but saying it's hard work, and be prepared to work hard, and be prepared. You know. I think the worst thing that anybody can do to themselves is to be naive about the realities of what's out there in life, and certainly about the film industry. Because I think a lot of people look at it, Topper, as a royal road to success without any caring about what really the ingredients are and what the value of the power of the medium is. You know, I grew up being told, and even when I was a grown man, I was told by professionals in the industry that film was just film, and it was not a powerful propaganda media. I didn't think that was quite true. But we now know it because it has come to us from abroad. You know, the Soviet bloc and other emerging nations have told us how important this medium can be as propaganda medium now, so we're now admitting it. I think they were afraid of our knowing that, you know, and so they said so.
I think that, again, Five on the Black Hand Side, I'm hoping that it's going to start a trend. I think our movie, Uptown Saturday Night, is also in the same general category of just good, clean fun, you know, and this is what I definitely want to see is a positive image, you know, of black people. I mean, enough already of, you know, pimps and Cadillacs and the rest of it. We all know it exists, and as powerful as film is, there is no reason in the world to export this to foreign lands. And exactly, and this is the only image that you get of, you know, we're still over here pimping and whoring and carrying on, you know, and Five on the Black Hand Side and Uptown Saturday Night, I dare say, will help to dispel, you know, this one-sided and incorrect, you know, as a whole, image.
Is that what you're trying to convey in your film? I mean, what was the bigger message? I agree with you entirely on that.
Well, I would say that most certainly that's part of what I feel, and I think that's why I responded to it, because I was aware. I know I was concerned about the kind of material that is being ground out of Hollywood and focused to the black community, and I objected to it very strenuously. And when I found this piece, I felt that its message, which is, you know, the device that Charlie Russell uses in this piece is humor, but he says some other things, and that's what's very important. He says some things about unity and identity and respect for each other, and he says them very easily without preaching.
And you
they
have the
happen
whole
in the
family.
story, and people have said, the audiences who've seen the film in other cities come out saying, "Man, that was so full of love, and it made me feel so good."
And you
it
have,
was
you know,
funny,
you have a
and they
whole
laugh and they
family there
cry.
too, you know, which
exactly.
again is like not an image that everybody gets. And when particularly Europeans, when they have nothing to base it against, I mean, their natural reaction is to say,
Just
first of
accept
all black people live in Harlem, and secondly,
Right.
this is all they do is seen in Superfly and the like, you know. And here you've got a nice family, and it's, you know.
Well, you know, Lee, I think it's worse than that. not only do they think that if these films are exported, and I don't think many of them are, because I don't think they could find a market for many of them, some of them
There's some
perhaps.
in the Caribbean that are going.
But much of our country wants to think that.
That is true.
amen.
Yeah.
Dig that.
And so these films, in the same way they affect those black youth, the impressionable black youth that want to believe what they're seeing and corroborate what they feel is the way to win in this society, so is the larger part of our population saying, yeah, that's what I believe, you know, and that, see, there it is.
Right.
It really doesn't help us. Ain't worth it at all.
I do. Jim, what kind of things would you like to see happen on the screen? You know, I mean, given that films are in fact such an influence on the heads in our community, what kind of things should we be putting out there?
Well, I think what we've just talked about is crucial. One of the most gratifying things I felt about Brock's film was that it was written by a black screenwriter. And I think that this very often just has a tendency to make all the difference in the world. I don't care what they're dealing with necessarily, but like another film that's being played on the River Niger, which was also an excellent play and dealt with the dynamics of a black family. And they're just more often together from that perspective. And like I said, I'm not going to say it should be a Western or whatever, but I think that a key and crucial difference is just going to be having a good blueprint. In other words, have the play, you know, start out with something, or the film start out with something, because no matter how good your talent are, no matter how talented your directors are, if you have a bad blueprint to start out with, you just can't make so much of it. And this has been the problem that has plagued a lot of our artists. You know, they see something that looks, you know, kind of good on screen, or they're forced to work with it for various different reasons, but if the script is not good and it's not relevant, no matter how great they are, they're just not going to be able to do but so much with it.
How are we doing in the area of ownership? I mean, just how much of the film that we're producing now is in fact owned by black people? You know?
I think it's, if I can just very briefly
Sure.
address myself too, it's something of a maze. I just smile every time I hear, you know, film grosses quoted by, I mean, the figures are tossed around with just reckless abandon. You hear on one occasion that a film made $8 million, excuse me, and then, you know, a week later somebody else who's involved with the film and somebody you feel should know says it's made $30 million. So I look upon all of the figures with a great degree of, you know, skepticism, because you just really don't know. Everybody's saying something different. And just to give you one example, I know when I talked with Raymond St. Jacques, he had told me it took him a good 2 years after he made Cotton Comes to Harlem to first start getting his residuals. And there's a great degree of, you know, rip-off still happening in that area. And it's very, very difficult to say. It's not a great deal. I'd
like to take this opportunity to, in fact, look at a segment from your film, Brock. So let's do that.
Oh,
Let's do
terrific.
that.
All right.
Terrific.
Right on. Right on. How do you decide, you know, who is most suited for a role in your films? You know, I mean, they obviously are there, you know?
Yeah, the problem is not different for a black producer or director than it is for a white one. For us, however, there's so much talent that just hasn't had an opportunity. The process, just to be specific, has to do with once you've read the property and decided that it's the property you'd like to produce, is then you begin conceiving of the look of the characters, and then you begin to think of the actor and the actress who might play these roles. And then you have to begin to think of a second choice in each instance, because the actor may not be available to you. And so then you've got to talk with them and negotiate with them, and if you can't get them for a price that won't break your budget, then you have to go to your second choice. So that is a fairly mechanical part of it. But Mike and I, my co-producer and I, were really rather fortunate in that we have been actors for, I guess, a combined total of something like 40 or 50 years in this business.
Okay.
And we know the actors, a great number of them. And there are also a great number of new actors on the scene, actors and actresses. And they had an affinity, a working affinity with us that was very special because they knew that we were actors. And it was
So
very
there's
exciting.
some mutual respect there. They felt you'd deal with them a little
Yeah.
more sensitively than.
And I think we did, and they felt that, and we certainly got. They knew that this was our first effort, and we certainly got great rapport established immediately. There wasn't any question.
Were most of the people in New York? Most of the actors?
No. Clarice Taylor at that time was in New York, and Leonard Jackson was in New York,
Okay.
and the guy who played Fun-Loving, T'Chaka Almoravitz, was in New York.
Okay.
But all the rest of them were on the West Coast
Okay.
at the time.
All right, we're going to look at another segment from the film. Wish we could run it all. But
So do I.
in due time. In due time.
In due time, it will be on nighttime
Okay.
television
All
eventually.
right. Okay, let's look at another one. Okay. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, right on. Right on. Where did you get your start? I mean, how did you get involved in the theatrical film business? You say you got 20-something years in there, I guess.
Well, the first film that I did was Carmen Jones.
Okay.
And that was done with Belafonte and Pearl Bailey and Dorothy Dandridge. And Diane Carroll. Gee, you remember
I
it better
saw it.
than
I saw
mine.
it in Paris. That's why.
You did?
Yeah, on a
Ah,
special
uh-huh.
kind of thing.
And that was my first exposure on film. My next didn't come until 6 years later in Porgy and Bess. I did, in the interim, manage to do some television appearances, but it was a long time between drinks. And then after the second film, the next film didn't come, 1958 to 62, then came To Kill a Mockingbird. And then after that, they seemed to fall into place for a while, film after film, and I guess that describes my film career up through today.
Where'd you start acting? You started for the stage and...
I started for the stage at
Yeah.
the American Negro Theater, out of which came confrères and contemporaries like Ruby Dee and Sidney Poitier and Hilda Sims and John Proctor, and I could go on ad infinitum. James Edwards, Jimmy Edwards, as we call him, and also the Harlem YMCA Little Theater group. I did a lot of early work in theater. You're probably going to ask, how did I become interested in the first place? You know,
I'd like to know.
I think I owe it to my mother. You know, she had a great desire that I be a fully rounded personality, and since she was the sole support, she did everything she could to make certain of that. Like insist, she wanted me to be an engineer, but she wanted me to have the other side of my life
Right.
well-rounded. And so she insisted on my having music lessons, which was fine enough on the face of it, but then she wanted me to play the violin because some friends of hers were giving violin lessons to their children. So I had to walk through the block a few times with violin. I became pretty hostile, but I managed to handle the situation. But but she also made certain that I was exposed. She took me to the museums, for example, and she insisted that I go to. She not insisted that I go. She took me to concerts, and my very first theater experience when I was very, very young. I remember sitting in a theater. I don't remember the play or anything except that I saw the lights dim and the crowd become quiet, and I began to be very excited. And the room darkened, and the curtain went up, and the lights went on stage, and it was like magic time, and I never forgot it. I thought, what is that? You know, and I think that's where it first happened. I didn't remember all of this when I used to be asked about where was the first impression of theater for me. I'd forgotten about it, and then I began to try to respond. I had to go back, and I found it. There it was.
Excellent, excellent. Well, what's in the future? What do you see in the future for yourself?
Well, I want to continue acting because I don't think my career as an actor should end because I've produced a film, and I want to continue producing also. And there are there's a great variety of material out there to be had. There are films that can be made from the 99th Pursuit Squadron, which could be fascinating. They were an incredible crew of black flyers in World War II. Incidentally, Percy Sutton, the borough president of Manhattan, was a member of the 99th Pursuit Squadron. I'd like to do a story on Chaka, who created the Zulu Empire at about the time Napoleon was rampaging around Europe. There's just so much material.
Yeah.
There's Christoph. I could.
I got you.
You know.
Lee, what's in the future for you? What's in the stars?
The stars. Well, I plan to continue. I'm going to be doing a television pilot in a couple of weeks or something. And there's some very interesting things that are brewing about. I would love to do something on the stage again, but you know how it is. You know, I guess you're just never satisfied in a sense. You know, but so right now it looks like television and film. You know, which is not bad, Judy.
Okay, there you go. There you go. Jim, you're a vital asset to us. I mean, it seems that we need many more black critics, you know, who can help keep things in perspective for us. What do you see happening?
Well, the need is tremendous, as you point out, and I had to sort of train myself, and to a point where I could get into the New York Film Critics Circle, and I think the need is just great, and I'm trying to help some of the black schools develop programs now and actual courses and curriculums where we can begin to train people, because they really have to understand the medium in its entirety to be able to deal with it. And it's a great need, so I hope I can help generate more interest in it.
Are there any other black film critics that you know of?
Nobody else in the country is doing it full time. Most people dibble and dabble in it, and I think the thing that I've learned is most important. They get so involved in imagery that they forget, all the other things that are so important to film as a medium. And this is what I'm hoping to see happen in the future, because just very briefly, with what somebody said to me is most important. Anyone can go to the movie and say whether it's good or bad or not, but a critic should be able to say if it's good, why it's good and why it works, and if it fails, what are the different factors that go into why it failed. And it should be a liaison type position where the critic can help the artist explain what he's trying to do to the public, and he should also be able to do it if he's objective enough to help the artist improve. And I think any serious artist is always looking for ways that he can improve his craft and technique, but too many people get involved in other aspects of just dealing with imagery. And like I said, it's an area that we certainly need to have a lot of growth in the black community.
Oh, I definitely agree. You say it's going to be taught somewhere. You're helping to structure some courses and cases?
At Atlanta University,
Excellent.
which is developing a very, very widespread, comprehensive communications program, setting up a seminar there now, and then we hope to have a booklet published from that, and then going to have a course developed to it very soon.
Excellent. I want to thank everybody for coming today, and I hope we have helped educate our audience a little further into some of the dimensions of black film and some of the trials and tribulations. In the words of Clayton Riley, film and drama critic, we must present a picture of ourselves, prevent our future from being shaped by others, particularly by those to whom our story is either unclear or unpleasant. Black films can define both what life in black America has been and hopefully what it will be about. And remember, be good to yourself.
Who would you like for me to do a video on next? What are your thoughts about this video? Please share them in the comments. Please be honest when answering these questions. Share this video with anyone you deem necessary. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.